Hello YouTube, welcome to RC Buggy Bash. I'm Jason and this is my Tamiya Nova Fox. Another quirky car from the 1980s. It was another one in the same way as when the Saint Dragon, the original kind of one of that came out, that chassis type came out. It was one that I wanted when I was a teenager. The original Tamiya Fox was released in 1985, so I would have been 15 at the time. I think I had a Manta Ray. I know I had a Hornet, that's for sure. I definitely had a Hornet, and I was still bashing around with the very first Wild Willie. Drove those into the ground like every other car that I had. I was obsessed, and obviously still am. But then when the Fox came out, it was like the two-wheel drive version of a hot shot, and that was exciting. I loved four-wheel drive cars, but two-wheel drive has always been, for me, a bit more fun, a bit more entertaining, just because of the way that they handle. So when I first saw this, it was a really exciting thing. Also, it's a beautiful car to look at. The original one was just as cool as this. Very scale. It looks like it should be trundling across the desert in the Dakar doing 90 miles an hour, with grit and sand flying out behind it. So it has that scaleness about it. It's a bit quirky, battery stuff hanging out the side. When I run it, I usually have that zip tied in. But it is a brilliant car, and it looks really nice, and it drives really nicely. It's got some issues, mainly the accessibility. If I whip off the body, there we go. It's a monocoque bathtub chassis, very similar to what, I mean, it's what Tamiya does. Most of their cars are a monocoque chassis. This one, the top plate, the top section of it, has got several screws that you've got to get through if you want to take it off. Now, granted, it means that it's kind of dust proof, especially larger bits of gravel, so that's a bonus. But to be able to get in and adjust anything, if you want to change the electrics, etc., then it's a little bit more complex to do so, because you've got to get into this. But it means it's a very sleek looking car. It's very low profile as far as a chassis goes, and that's meant lots of people have done cool things with body shells and stuff, just extending the body mounts to be able to fit Beetle bodies and things like that. It's a really nice thing to look at because it's got that feel of a hot shot. It kind of feels exotic. It's got mono front suspension in the same way as the hot shot and various other cars at this time had, and just twin independent suspension at the rear. I've got a 540 motor in there, just a classic. I mean, you can do brushless. I've seen these running brushless, but I wouldn't put the drivetrain through that personally. And it's quick enough. It's quite a nippy car when it gets going. It has an FRP. It's almost like it's a fiberglass suspension tower, which means it's already got the right geometry to be able to put carbon fiber on there if you really wanted to. And you used to be able to get carbon fiber updates for it. So yeah, 95mm shocks at the back. I like to add little rubber O-rings just to be able to get a little bit more cushioning in there if it bottoms out completely. Really nice suspension. It sits well, so it has a nice droop to it, and I've mentioned droop a few times now, but that's a really nice thing to have once you get these shocks set up. And it's got lovely dampening. This is just using the standard Tamiya oils, so nothing fancy. I do have some thicker oils which I might put in, but yeah. One of the things in the Nova Fox, which is this version, the new one, the sway bar is standard. So that comes just as default with the kit, whereas in the original that was not. That was an optional extra. And yeah, it feels quite nice. The suspension at the front is quite short. It doesn't have a lot of movement when it doubles down, but independently it's surprisingly good. It is an interesting system, and it handles brilliantly. It is a really, really nice car to drive, and it's a nice car to look at. So it is, you know, one of my top 5, I would have thought, at the moment. It's one of the ones I'm going to be getting out on the garden track once I've got that sorted out over the spring. I'll be talking about that at some point in the not too distant future. So I'm hoping to do a kind of time trial system. I have dozens and dozens of cars, and I want to see which ones are the best, basically. So hopefully I'll get that those videos out over the course of the year, and we'll see which one of my cars becomes the top of the garden track. But yeah, brilliant chassis. Visually one of my favorites. Handles great when you drive it. It's difficult to work on, so doing maintenance on it is a bit of a chore. Stripping it down takes longer than most cars. When you compare it to the likes of a DTO2, which is just an open bathtub chassis and a separate gearbox that can literally just pop off. This one, to be able to get in the gearbox, you more or less have to just unassemble 2/3 of the car. You've got to take off the top deck, you've got to take off the suspension, you've got to take off the A-arms to be able to get to the gearbox, which is nestled in the back here. So it is a little bit of a nightmare to work on, but the end result, as in many cases with Tamiya cars, is something that's very different and very cool. So I'll get some driving shots of this hopefully over the spring. But yeah, in these videos I'm just kind of introducing you to my collection and some of the things that I like or dislike about them. And yeah, the Nova Fox is an on the fence car for me. I love driving it. I like looking at it, especially with the gold wheels. And every time I kind of drive it and take it out, I want a hot shot. I want the 4-wheel drive version. But I really don't like doing maintenance on it. It's fiddly, and it's difficult, and it's time consuming compared to many other cars. But I guess that's what you get for something that was designed in the mid-80s. So Tamiya Nova Fox, would I recommend? Definitely. But with the caveats that making it and maintaining it is a little bit more difficult than just your kind of DTO2s. I think on a scale of 1 to 5, you know, where level 1 is really easy, like a DTO2, and level 5 are, you know, really high-end cars that can have lots of adjustability and tweaking and stuff. This is middle of the road to do with working on it. It's about a 3. You need to know a little bit more about RC cars to put one of these together. I wouldn't say it's a beginner's car at all, but it's not an advanced modeler's car. You can still do it, and of course the instructions, as always with Tamiya, are amazing. But it was a little bit more fiddly to put together than some, but not as hard as the likes of a hot shot, because they are very complex cars. So Tamiya Nova Fox, expect more footage driving soon. So as always, stay safe and have fun with RC, because that's what it's about. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.